Hey everybody, thanks very much for joining me. I was talking to a founder last week, someone who had asked us for help on some hires they were planning around a funding round. And one of the comments they made that I think probably plays into today's topic, they had over 700 applications for some of the roles they were advertising. And yet they could count on one hand the amount of people that they felt were relevant. And I think that probably reflects that, particularly at the moment, then recruitment can feel a real pain for a lot of founders and a lot of startups. And specifically on the employer branding side of things and attracting the best talent, which is what I'm going to talk about today, I hope to give you a path to not simply viewing success on recruitment as the number of applications, but really about finding the right people and the right people for you and your startup, which is going to be different than the ones I would recruit for ISL Talent, my business, and for any other founder that's out there at the moment. So it's about individually understanding what is right for you. And the key thing from today is how you bring that to life through your employer brand, or in simple terms, your reputation, your story. I think recruitment can have a very transactional feel and be about the numbers, and maybe that's amplified by things like LinkedIn's Easy Apply and the various AI tools. So candidates can fire off applications. So for some startups at their end, they're using AI to sift through those applications. And it loses a lot of the essence of, I think, what makes a great company to work for and what makes a great employee. And I'm going to try and bring those together in some way today. No doubt at the moment, there are lots of people looking for work. That active talent pool has grown, and any posting will get lots of activity, but it's about getting the right activity and getting the right people, understanding who you are as a startup, what you're building as a founder, and what's in it for them. What is the opportunity if they're going to change from a good job to a great job, or from no job to take yours, amongst the variety of options there? What differentiates that over and above job titles and salary, things that you can easily compare? What's unique about your story and about your offering? Or at least, what is the differentials that you're offering, even if it's not truly unique? The war for talent has clearly, with the way we work now being much more remote and virtual, has extended beyond the borders of postcodes that it used to have. And that means there's a global competition for talent across many roles. So what's really important is being able to distinguish your company, your startup, in a crowded market. Whether your name is known or not, what I'll cover today is a way to help stand out to the best talent, even if you don't have the brand name of a bigger tech business. And what I'm covering today is part 2 of a series of 6. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about talent planning, and very much that's about defining what you're looking for. The focus today is about attracting the best, and links very strongly into employer branding and making sure you're covering the marketing part of recruitment. Over the next few weeks, every fortnight, this time on a Monday, 1 p.m, or as a recording, if you're not accessing this live, we'll cover everything from locating candidates through to evaluating them. And then once you've made the hires, how you maximize the potential of your people by onboarding them and making sure that you are retaining your best talent. And it's all about helping you as a founder or as a startup leader to understand a very overall talent framework. This is how we work with clients at ISL, but it's also whether you're working with me or doing it yourself or working with another partner. These are the sorts of things you need to make sure you've covered, rather than simply posting an advert, having written a job specification and assuming you're going to make the best hires for your business. It's how you can find the right team to build a great startup. And the focus on today is very much on the talent attraction and emphasizing the employer branding. Now, some of you might be familiar with this term, some of you less so. What we'll talk about today across that talent framework is what we've done for a number of businesses in the last 12 months. is a selection of some of the ones we've worked with. They're often venture funded startups that are going from seed to scaling, and have raised some funding and will help them hire across technology, commercial or go to market, leadership, and a few other key areas. But back on to today's subject, and it's around employer branding. So I thought it'd be useful to share a definition here. So this comes from Harvard Business Review, and it's really about standing out as an employer and standing out to the people you want. And it plays both into the hiring side of things, but also the people you have in your business today. Employer branding isn't simply about telling your story to the new people. It's about making sure with those current people in your team that you've captured what makes your business special, and you're using those efforts to both retain and recruit, and to make sure you've got something joined up and consistent along the way. So I guess the problem and why I thought I would talk about this, I mentioned those 700 applications at the beginning. And I think one of the challenges is that most startups ignore or don't bring to the fore their employer brand. One issue, if you're working with recruiters, a lot of the industry is built around anonymous adverts. So you may be a founder of a SaaS business in climate tech. You'll have invested in your brand, and you'll have a story that really helps you stand out and is clearly unique to you as a founder and as a startup. You then find a recruiter, good, bad, or ugly. I know there's plenty out there to choose from, but the majority of them, no matter how much credibility they have, will then talk to you about your role, capture the key things around it, and post an advert which hides all of the brands that you've put effort into developing so far. It's an anonymous advert. So rather than talking about you as a company, it will say, my client, an amazing SaaS business in the climate tech space, looking to save the world, blah, blah, blah. And there's some stuff in there that will attract people, but your story, your brand is really lacking there. So that's one issue you might find if you're engaging with recruiters. We do some at ISL Talent, some anonymous advertising, but 70% of our work last year was retained. And one of the benefits of retained to everybody involved is we can run co-branded campaigns. So we would talk about Clue or InSphere or Student Crowd rather than ISL Talent. And we looked at the data across our applications, and we had 4 or 5 times more applicants when we're reaching out with the brand, but that quality is there. The conversion from applications to interviews to hire is 2 to 3 times stronger when we're working on branded, co-branded campaigns than when we're running anonymous adverts. So that's one thing to think about, is the way that you're going to hire losing the essence of your brand and your story that can make things really special. And if there's any questions along the way on any of this, then let me know. I'll also leave time at the end to check in and see if I've captured anything that's on your mind. Another issue is that you may well be recruiting directly. So your name is there, but if you were to really assess whether your brand is strongly coming across, then it might fall down in a couple of ways. Number one, I talked in the session 2 weeks ago about how you put together a job description. Now, many startups take that job description, an essential part of the hiring process, and use that as their advert. So you might end up with 600, 700, 800 words. That's very descriptive, not very engaging, not very exciting. So they're using a job description as an advert rather than using something that's engaging. So your brand really doesn't come out if you're relying on job descriptions to plug onto LinkedIn or Indeed and expect people to understand the full extent of your story. The other issue may well be the lack of digital footprint you've got. So as an early stage business, there's a hell of a lot going on, and there's so many things you need to do. And one of the things in my experience that can often be overlooked is, from a hiring point of view, a way to show off the story of your business and the team and the people within your business. So that might be you and one other, maybe 2 co-founders at a very early stage. Maybe there's 10 within the team. No matter how many, there'll be some brilliant people within your team that are really proud about working for the business, but often no one gets to see those, or at least they won't see those until they come to an interview, and they might not ever come if they can't see some of that story digitally. remember a few years ago being at a talk where there was a founder of an AI and hardware business. And he was talking to a room, and there was definitely a number of engineers in that room. And he was bemoaning he wasn't able to hire good engineering talent. Now, of course, the people that were in that room, I think there was maybe 30 people, so perhaps 20 of those were engineers, were able to understand a bit more about the business and maybe get excited about, could this be the next step for them in their career, even if they weren't actively looking. But while he was talking, I jumped onto the website and there was nothing there from an employee or a potential employee's perspective about what it'd be like to work for that business. There was no career section on their social. There was nothing about their values, their culture. I know he had a team of 12 people and some really fascinating people within that team, but it's really difficult to get a sense of that if I'd stumbled across them, heard them talk. So he was capturing the attention of people in the room, but scaling that much more digitally and giving something that didn't rely on people being there on that Tuesday lunchtime. There was nothing. And it's not the sort of thing that requires a lack of effort, but it's that lack of digital storytelling and that lack of digital footprint. So those are some of the issues that you're either hiding your brand, or you're not bringing it to the fore, and you're overlooking some really easy ways that you can show that off. So I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about how you can fix that and what's the solution. And the good news is it's not something you need to pour thousands and thousands of pounds into. And it can, as I mentioned earlier, have a benefit not just on recruitment, but also on engaging and retaining your existing team. So you need to develop an employer brand, and there's many people out there that can help you with that. It's also the sort of thing you can run through yourself, but some really simple steps. So I would think about, how can I reach passive candidates and not simply the active ones? And if I was to look at the team that I've got within the business, whether it's 1 people or 21 people, there's going to be some really interesting personalities there. There's going to be some really interesting stories there within that team that you want to capture and bring to life. So the first thing I would do, I would go and talk to my existing team, whether that's my co-founder, whether it's the 10 people I've got in my business. Also, maybe it might be your broader network. And I would talk to them about why they think this is a great place to work. Why did they join the business? What do they most enjoy about working within my startup? What are they excited about over the coming 12 or 18 months, both personally and for the business as a whole? Why are they staying within the business? What is it that keeps them when no doubt there are plenty of other jobs they could be doing? And I would take that information, and my hope is that simply the act of capturing that information is really valuable in itself. It surprises me sometimes, people that I've worked with for years, and I ask them questions like this, and I learn so much about why it is they enjoy working within ISL Talent. And I'm sure you would get the same feedback. It may be not all positive, but still it's a valuable exercise to go through. But hopefully you're getting some really positive stories to share. And I would then take that, and there's a few options. Maybe some quick quotes on the careers page. Maybe for some of my team, I'd capture what they said, audio, video clips, put that out there on social media. Use Canva to create some really simple image tiles. So very low effort, but effective things that won't require you to invest lots of money, that can bring that fuller story of your employer brand and your employer value proposition out there, rather than relying on bland and boring job descriptions masquerading as adverts. One of the clients I mentioned we've worked with the last couple of years, Clue Software, they created a really powerful video, which again was relatively simple and didn't require lots of investment, and talked to their team about what they did today. And you get 15 or 20 seconds of relatively generic. I entered records into the CRM system. I engaged with some clients. I spoke to some of our best accounts. And the narrator asks, so what? And the following 20 seconds is where you get much more of their story, understanding how their employees had helped solve child sex trafficking or help the fight against organized crime. So very much talking to the purpose of the business and their mission and their vision and their values. And you can do exactly the same with your existing team. I've talked a fair bit about job adverts and job descriptions. You can think of that a little bit like a movie script and a movie trailer. Both would be essential to get people to come and watch your film. The movie script is the long, detailed thing that is akin to a job description. The movie trailer is short. It's short and snappy and will really engage and excite people. And that's exactly what your adverts should be doing. And social media activity, don't be dormant. When you've got that great content you can share that talks about your employer brand, then don't leave it hidden in the cupboard. So encourage your team to post. As a founder, a CEO, again, I think about the people that I see that struggle with hiring, and it's not all about a post on LinkedIn capturing 5 great CVs, but there's no doubt there is a link between those founders that are more active on social media, and particularly LinkedIn, depending on where your audience is, and those that are able to consistently attract and build up relations and connections with that broader talent pool, rather than simply the people that are looking for work right now. So be consistent on social media, don't be dormant. Have some content you can reuse and repurpose and share, and you'll find it quite easy to then have regular content that goes out there that keeps you front of mind. Share a bit about one of the best performers in your team, or what made you really proud about the people that you've got working with you in the last month. And that will resonate with people that want to be looking for new roles in the future, but might not be clicking on apply right now. So put yourself in a position where you're front of mind to that talent pool, and when you're starting to build a connection with them. And some of what I'm talking about will give you maybe short-term results and wins, but the reality is that building your talent pool is a long-term game. So I bumped into a founder last week that I'd met at a Founders for Schools event. So the two of us were talking to an audience of around about 100 sixth formers around careers and leadership and the choices that they might be thinking through, whether it's university or apprenticeships or other options post-18 education. And 2 years on, this founder said that one of the people that heard him talk that day was working for his startup. So you won't be able to always draw a clear correlation between building up your employer brand and making hires, but that was something that clearly there was a connection there between the two. So the more you invest in this upfront with the right story, the more return you'll get in the longer term. And building that talent pool, building your team has to be a longer term strategy, even if you're balancing that against some urgent and short-term hiring requirements. Hopefully you've understood why this is important, but some other things that highlight this. So employers with strong brands receive 50% more qualified talent leads. And there's a 28% reduction in employee turnover. So it helps you to bring the right people to your jobs and helps you then to keep those people once they've joined you. From a job seeker's point of view, 75% of job seekers are more likely to apply for a job if the employer actively manages their employer brand by doing some of the things I've talked about. So employer branding can significantly reduce the effort you need to put into hiring on a particular role and increase the quality of hires. So we're coming to the end of the time. So if there's any questions or comments, then please drop them into the chat. And to recap, then employer branding has to be something that is of strategic importance to your startup. No startup will succeed without the right people in place. And if you're simply relying on posting adverts to active candidates, you're not going to maximize your reach within the market, and you're not going to increase your ability to hire quickly in the longer term, rather than simply working on the urgent and important stuff all the time. We've talked a bit about attracting talent today, and it's built on the talent planning session from a couple of weeks ago. One of the things you might want to do as a business is take advantage of our scorecard, which I'm going to share here. So this is something that will give you some feedback both on your talent planning, your employer branding, also your assessment and your retention. So you can scan the QR code, go through 15 questions that will then give you personalized feedback on what you're doing well as a business and where you might need to put some effort to improve, whether that's employer branding or some of the other things that I've covered. And as a business, like I say, ISL works with startups, scale-ups, often venture funded, to help them across all these areas. So not just sending CVs and invoice and moving on, but helping founders with some of the talent planning I covered a couple of weeks ago, with some of the story, the employer branding that we talked about today, and also with some of the other things that make up the rest of the talent acronym here. So in 2 weeks' time, we're going to be talking about locating candidates. You've thought through what you're looking for, you've got your story straight, and now you need to think about how you reach the biggest talent pools. And I've touched on some of that today, but we'll drill down into more detail in 2 weeks' time. So next Monday, on Monday the 19th of February at 1 p.m, we'll talk about how you locate candidates, how you advertise in the right places, how you be proactive or engage with a recruiter to make sure that you've covered the headhunting aspect, how you can build up your talent pool, and how you can also make sure you leverage your network, whether that's the current team, previous employees, investors, advisors, people that you work with as clients and suppliers. So that's coming up in 2 weeks' time. If you've got any feedback, drop a comment into the comment section here, or drop me a message on LinkedIn, which is where you'll find me most actively. I hope this has really highlighted to you the importance of attracting the best talent, not simply through adverts, but putting effort into your employer brand, and look forward to chatting to you next time out. Thanks.